We got a very, very special guest joining us here. It's kind of one of our first white whales, I think, Toad. Our first Moby Dick.
We got the big one.
We got the big
one.
We got Giancarlo Devito, the man behind Legends of Dade. And I don't want to get this wrong. It is at Legends of Dade on Instagram. A following that probably doesn't need any introduction. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you already follow his account. But this is the first time he's in front of the camera, sort of revealing himself. Right before we hopped on, he said this was his MLB The Show Unlock a Character. So, doesn't need any more introduction than that. But Giancarlo Devito, the legend of Dade, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Appreciate it. Of course, honored to be on. Thank you.
Toad and I know you've interfaced and talked to Toad quite a bit, through the accounts and whatnot. You've grown this sort of friendship that's budding. Yeah. And I think one of the first things we noticed when we started this account was like, hey, all of our friends, I go onto your Instagram page. We have hundreds of followers in common because everybody's first favorite team, if you're from South Florida, is the Florida Marlins. Not the Miami Marlins, the Florida Marlins, the OG 97, 2003 World Series champs. You've grown this page now to, I don't know how many followers. It's a lot more than we have. And you have, these unreal clips. You put out so much heat on it. It seems like a daily basis. Every time I open your account, it's, something that brings me back. It's goosebumps inducing kind of moments.
Legends of Dade on a consistent basis unlocks a core memory for me.
100%.
And my favorite thing that the account does for me is it is a dose of nostalgia straight into my veins. And I was telling someone today, I'm like, first of all, I was like super excited. I'm like, bro, we're interviewing Legends of Dade today. You're not going to believe this crap. And I was just going off about how when I watch one of your clips, I can remember exactly where I was, whether I was at the game or watching it on TV with my family. It's just a surreal account, and
awesome,
it's amazing stuff, man. And we're obviously big fans and honored you're willing to collab with the Mafia.
Yeah, no, and I think more than anything, man, it's gratitude from Todd and I, because not only for coming on here today, but gratitude for finding those clips and giving us those little moments of joy in what has been a very, very tough couple years as Marlins fans.
Of course,
Todd and I consider ourselves big time Marlins fans. It's been a tough road as of late, but we're here to talk about you. Tell us about your fandom. Where did it start? How did this page get to where it is right now?
So the fandom started early in the 2003 season, which is a good time to hop on the bandwagon. That's around the time I started watching baseball. My Cuban abuelo, a big Marlins fan, a lot of knowledge when it comes to the history of the game, and he was able to pass that on to me. And then my earliest memories of baseball is just sitting on the couch with him, and him having his radio on, listening to Felo Ramirez and Iki Quintana on the call, usually with the TV on mute, which is something that I've learned as I've had interactions with people on the account and just the community, that, a lot of people had the similar experiences with their grandpa, their father, listening to Felo with the TV on mute, which is something that I thought was unique to me, but it's really cool to have people reach out and say, hey, I used to listen to it on mute with my grandpa or my dad. Man, this brings back memories. That's why I made the page, for nostalgia. I remember following the team throughout the season, from when they were underdogs, from when Conine came back to the Fish and had those, that big series against Philadelphia. At school, the whole school having newspaper clippings up on the hallways and the walls, and kids wearing their Marlins gear to school, and just the whole run. It was magical, and it's something that I've had expectations for them to do every year after that, and unfortunately hasn't happened. So since then, I've been hoping to get that feeling and chase that feeling again that we haven't had, unfortunately. But that's where the fandom started. Was hooked. Went to as many games as I could. Would beg my parents or my grandpa to drive all the way to Miami Gardens to take me to the games. As far as the page, started during COVID, like a lot of us, spare time, on our hands. And I remember it was around the time that Don Shula had actually passed away. And I was just tapping into my creative side. I was actually on my phone, making a Don Shula collage or something like that I wanted to post, or just create, not even to post, just for myself, and then that turned into, let's make a Marlins collage, which turned into me thinking back at Marlins history.
Right.
Which led to me going down the rabbit hole of YouTube, trying to find old Marlins clips, which I was taken back and surprised at the lack of. There was not a lot of Marlins content or Florida Marlins content.
And I think that begs the question, as someone who is like that. I think yesterday I was watching Dan Ugla highlights for God knows what reason on YouTube. Where do you source the clips? I'm not asking a magician to reveal his secrets by any means. You can divulge as much information as you want. But what is that process like? And what I think today, I forget what clip I watched the Alfredo Meziga inside the park home run, or Bonifacio. I'm getting them confused now.
Bonifacio inside the park.
Yeah. So I randomly came across that one today. What inspires you, or how do you think back of a specific play and go, hey, time for Legends of Dade to go digging?
I mean, so I would say that 80% of the clips are already on YouTube. Are available on YouTube, you know, and then I've had the page, and I've kind of, like I said, I noticed that there was not as much clips or videos as when you start thinking back, oh wow, the Marlins have had a lot of good moments in history, and they just weren't available on YouTube or wherever you would go to find this, MLB.com, and then you start sourcing. There's actually people that go ahead and upload VHS tapes, they have in their archives. And they'll upload like full games randomly, and these games on YouTube sometimes will have 100 views, 50 views, and what I'll do is if I see there's a full game, I'll go back and I'll go on Baseball Reference. I'll look up the box score.
Wow.
If there's anything in particular that would be, it would stand out, I'll go back to that inning and find the video. And that's I love that. Like, there's nothing better than finding a gem, like a diamond in the rough.
Giancarlo, you are the GeoGuessr of Marlins baseball.
Does this process for you? So you started this during COVID, and as it started evolving, obviously, you got this big following, and you have now former players. I mean, Todd and I always see guys commenting on your page. How has that been? From a creative standpoint, you're finding these clips that maybe some of these former players don't even realize still exist on the internet. Like, how much interaction do you have with some guys? Are they constantly reaching out to you? Are they asking you to find certain clips for them? How does that work?
That has happened. I've had former players reach out and say, hey, can you find me this specific game on this day, which I'll do my best to find, but most of the time it's not possible just because, and it's lost in, I don't know where, but it's something that I feel strongly about. I feel like MLB should do a better job in general of putting out content. It's very limited. Now, there's video and high quality video of games that I don't know who has. I don't know if they're locked up in some, dungeon, and there's a guy just with a key and just holding it. I don't know for who. I don't know for what. But there's a lot of videos that are just lost. But there are times where I'm able to find videos for players, whether it's people uploading them on YouTube or me just digging, like I said, just finding and searching everywhere I can. And I've been able to find video that a player has been searching for. I've had Robert Andino actually come to me and say, hey, I don't have video of my first career home run, which I was appalled just to hear that. A former MLB player doesn't have video of his first MLB home run. So I kind of made it my mission. Like, I'm going to find this home run, which I ended up finding. And was able to post that. And he was able to repost that for his family and stuff. And that's awesome, man. I can't ask for more.
That's an amazing story, and Robert Andino is one of my go-to immaculate grid guys. If I want to 0.001%, if it's Marlins, Orioles, or when you got to put like a random guy who played left field, Robert Andino,
the price Southridge, bro.
Yeah, my guy is always Edwin Jackson. That's my go-to guy.
Oh, you might have to leave.
Yeah,
dude, if I'm stuck,
cheating, bro.
Yeah, I'll pull that one out of my back pocket every time.
Yeah, but speaking of former players, the number one guy who is constantly commenting on your posts more than Bullpen Mafia is Dontrelle Willis. It is unbelievable how often the D-Train is liking, commenting on your posts, which, I mean, for a lot of kids in Miami, our age, our demo, he's a lot of kids' favorite players, and I'm sure the first couple times that the D-Train was commenting on your videos and even sharing them to his IG stories, there might have been a few emotions or like holy shit moments going on in your head. Right. What's that like when someone of that magnitude and a World Series champion World Series champion is sharing your content?
I mean, I definitely have had a good amount of those holy shit moments. And believe it or not, D-Train he was one of the first followers of the page.
Wow.
So I'm talking D-Train was following me and liking my profile and my pictures when I had less than 100 followers, which was at the time even more of an oh shit moment. But that just goes to show, I think, of what type of guy he is. You know, he's a super humble guy, super cool dude, and you can tell how much he really cherishes his time here. You know, that's something that he expresses a lot to me. You know, like he's online and he's responding to comments all the time. You know, and you can see in my comments and the Legends of Dade comments.
Yeah.
Super cool dude, but for sure that was a moment where it's like, wow, like, you know, I would say he's my top 5 favorite Marlins of all time. You know, and one of the few Marlins that had a lot of recognition.
I'm getting chills for you hearing you tell this story, because that 2003 season is probably my favorite championship a South Florida team has ever won. And Javi and I were at Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and that 2003 season means tenfold to me than what these recent championships, what LeBron and the Heat did. It's the Marlins and baseball, I think, is a very unique sport in that it brings generations together. And you're like you sharing watching 03 with your dad, with your grandfather. I did the same thing with my dad and my brother. We went to, I don't know how many games that season, and not just that season, but the passion I have for the Marlins was passed down to me from my dad. The passion I have for baseball, it's a family affair for me, and it's an incredibly personal experience for me. And I think, Giancarlo, it sounds like it's the same for you and obviously for Javi. And that's why we feel so passionate, and I think frustrated is really the word with the team at this moment, because we know what they're capable of. And to go back to what you said about your expectations, even though they haven't won a championship in 20 years, you expect that because we've tasted it and we've watched it, we've experienced it. And I think most fans should be on your page. Like, let's not cut the team any slack. We've been there. We've been to the mountaintop. We should be consistent winners.
100%. 100%. You know, you taste it, and like just like the players do, when they taste that championship, that's the ultimate motivator to, want to get back. And that's something that I really do feel strongly about the Marlins, at least. We're not a team that, I understand if you want to go ahead and change the colors, you want to change the uniform, you want to tear it all down and bring it back up, that's fine. And you don't hesitate on doing that, if you don't have a history, if you don't have not a lot of winning, right? But the teal, represents something to me, and that we've won 2 championships with teal, so that's something that I can't wrap my head around how they would move on from that. And it almost is like they don't want to build a tradition, and tradition is a big part of baseball, and that's what makes the Cubs the Cubs. That's what makes the Yankees the Yankees. That's what makes the Red Sox the Red Sox. Generations passed on. So that's something that's frustrating.
So I take it you're not a big fan of the newish logo after the new Miami Marlins logo that was orange. So we've had like 3 iterations since that teal. So I take it you're not a fan of any of those, right?
I mean, look, both ways. I mean, look, it's an upgrade from what it was previously.
Yeah,
to the one we have now, for sure. Everybody can agree on that, but it's almost like you passed up a once in a lifetime opportunity to change it back.
Insane.
And you dropped the ball on that. Like, not a lot of teams get that opportunity where this team was sold and you had almost an opportunity to make it right, and you kind of just fumbled that.
It's unbelievable.
When I saw the early renderings. I don't know if you guys remember that. There was some early renderings of like the newest logo. Yeah. And I thought it was a joke. I was like, nah, they're not. There's no way they're not going back to
What's a bigger joke? Sorry, go ahead.
Like this, to me, I saw this. This is the first thing I thought of. I said, "There's no way they're gonna not." I'm talking back in 2012.
It's just crazy. What you have on your head would have been the lowest hanging fruit ever of the most epic and amazing logo reveal in South Florida sports history. If what you have on your head is what the new ownership group and Jeter rebranded to, like,
who knows what would happen?
Exactly, man. And it's wild.
So, Giancarlo, you mentioned at the outset your love for watching the games with your grandpa, fellow Ramirez, like obviously that's like an if you know kind of thing.
Right.
What are some of your favorite like pro player stadium moments? I know Todd and I have been to that stadium a million times. It's weird to see now. We see Hard Rock Stadium on Sunday night hosting Copa America. It's like, bro, I don't remember that version of pro player stadium.
And nobody was entering Marlins games through AC vents or using ladders.
Maybe in 03, bro. In 03 with those 65,000 fans, but yeah. So some of your favorite memories of pro player.
There's a bunch. From 03, I remember, I think, was it Game 5? That was a home game in the NLDS against the Cubs. NLCS, right?
NLCS, yeah.
It was a home game that we lost. I believe it was Game 5. One of those games we lost at home. I remember just a Cubs fan just relentless all game. Just, let's go, Cubbies, let's go. And he just did not stop. And I had never experienced anything like that. He was more intense. And I remember him looking around and saying, oh, these ain't real fans, like, look at everybody here quiet. And I stood up as like a 9 or 10-year-old and was like, let's go Marlins, like in space. Like I stood up for everybody in the section. I remember going to a game against the Giants during that series when we also lost one of those home games. Watching Barry Bonds. I remember the player intros from 03. The JP walk-up song, like the graphics on the Jumbotron with like the palm trees and kind of like it was like a storm in the back with like a palm tree. It was for 2003, they were ahead of their time with that one.
Man, I'm glad you brought up the intro songs because Mike Lowles and Juan Pierce have stuck with me for the rest of my life.
100%.
DMX and We Ready by Archie Eversole.
Yes.
I'm gonna pose an idea, a project for Legends of Dade. As the geoguesser of South Florida, can you put together a Spotify playlist with the 2003 team's walk-up songs?
Man, that's a challenge that I would love to take on. I'll tell you that. I could think about 5. I know Miggy had Tego Calderon.
Yeah.
Bro, which is pretty cool. I remember that. And I'm 10 years old, dude, at this time, and I remember that. And I remember just those sticky Sunday games, where like your legs were sticking to the seats.
You're begging for a frozen lemonade, bro.
I remember. I remember my sister like tapping out completely and saying like after the 3rd inning, like let's go home right now. I remember those 2008. 2007 to 2009 games where it's a Tuesday game. My dad at the time had a contact that would just basically give away like suite level tickets to the Marlins games, which I think he 100% regrets telling me about. I would make him drag me to like 2008, like drag him to the Marlins game on a random Tuesday night. Like he's falling asleep in his chair and I'm here like, watching the game and like zoned in.
Those 07 to 09 teams are my favorite. Outside of 2003.
I love those teams. Something about them, like a lot of offense, I think is, but I remember.
Don't sleep on Josh Johnson.
Josh Johnson, man, Dan Ugla, like just those scrappy teams where they were never out of it. Definitely one of my favorite Marlins teams.
Giancarlo, we're going to fast forward now to current state of the fish. I know that, Todd and I have talked at length on our pod about, what's going on. If you could put on your owner GM hat for a second here, I guess, first of all, how closely are you following the team day to day now? And second of all, how do you improve the team from where it's at, current positioning in the standings, and how do you get more fans in the seats?
I follow the team quite a bit. I'm usually a little bit more locked in early in the season where your hopes are high, you're optimistic. Everybody's in first place. Everybody has a chance. And then when the team starts kind of falling off, I tend to kind of, back off a little bit. I watch the game as much as I can. I'm trying to get my son to be a Marlins fan. So, I mean, to him, like the Marlins are the best team in the world.
Wow.
He wouldn't know their record or anything like that. I take him to as many games as I can. I like to go on a Sunday with him and just have a nice, day off.
Wow.
But the state of the Marlins right now, it's frustrating. And I'm not going to lie, I have had times where I've been like, it's enough. I'm going to boycott. I'm not going to the games. I'm not giving this team any more of my money. But you'll see me there again the next Sunday. As soon as there's a bobblehead night, I'm there.
SpongeBob night, bro. You're going to be there.
I'm gonna be there.
Me too, man. I need it just for the content, bro. It's the most absurd thing I've ever seen, and I desperately need one. Giancarlo, maybe let's make a plan. That could be Legends of Dade, Bullpen Mafia, IRL. We'll link up. We'll get the seats together.
Let's do it, man.
We'll rock.
I got the tickets. I got my tickets. I'm out.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Told you better get yours, buddy.
You text me after this. You text me what section, and I'm gonna buy them tonight.
Oh man.
Yeah, man.
So you're still plugged in, and I think what Toto and I have struggled with is like I have Xfinity, man. So like for me, it's like the Marlins are off my radar basically completely. Not because I willingly. I played baseball, played at the minor league level. I love watching, and I still do watch a whole lot of games. But just for me, it's become increasingly difficult to just find the Marlins. And I think one thing that they've sort of shied away from or haven't necessarily done a great job is keeping engaged the fans that are lifelong fans, like myself, like Toad, like yourself, where, hey, let's keep the team competitive. And they went through this period after 2003 where the team was still fun. They were competitive. They didn't make the playoffs those years, but like those Dan Uggla, Cantu, Mike Jacobs teams, those teams were a lot of fun to watch, man. They brought a lot of energy. They brought South Florida together. They won maybe 80-something games, but it felt like you were in the thick of the playoffs every year, and we weren't. But now it's gotten to a point where it's like, where are we in the standings? Every time you look, it's like, holy cow, it's further and further and further back, and it's just more difficult to sort of wrap your head around, like, how have we fallen this far behind? Right.
Yeah, I mean, and look, these I understand from that. There's things we can't control. We can't control the payroll side of it. We can't control fans getting to the stadium. Attendance is a big part of it, right? And the bottom line is, right, as you guys, I've watched you guys podcast with Glenn Geffner, and he kind of went into about, the bottom line is this ownership group hasn't made their investment back, and it doesn't look like they're going to be spending money anytime soon, which I know they're leaning into and kind of taking their approach, of that kind of that money balls, analytics approach. We can't control these things, right? But you can't overlook how important it is, just even let's say 3 years that the team is not competitive. Like you're losing generations of fans that could have become fans during that, even those 2-3 years. You're almost missing a window, and you can't look past that. That has value, and that has long-term effects as well. So it's tough, but as far as what they can control, they can control acknowledging their history. And that's something that I think we can all agree that they've missed on. Why are the Miami Marlins the only team out of 30 teams that do not have any jersey numbers retired? That's something that I've been big on. To those that know me, I bring up all the time. There's no excuse for that. I don't know if that's something that they have in the works, but I can name you a handful right off the top of my head that should 100% have their jerseys retired. And there's also players that have gotten their jerseys retired for other teams that have done less for the most part than some of those players that I'll mention.
Give us your 5, Giancarlo.
Number 1 is Luis Castillo, and that's an underrated. I would say one of the most underrated Marlins of all time. He played with us. He actually started with the Marlins, I think, 96, was his rookie year, where he played. I think second half of the season he got called up along with Renteria. And off the bat, he was getting a lot of playing time. He was on the 97 roster, wasn't on the World Series roster, but I believe he leads the franchise in hits, stolen bases, a lot of big statistics. He's won Gold Gloves, All-Stars, you name it, World Series championships. There's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't look at him and his stats and say, how is this guy not retired jersey with the Marlins? It doesn't make sense to me. That's just one. I can go down the list.
That's a perfect segue into what our next, what we really wanted to get to with you. We're gonna do an all-time favorite Marlins snake draft. Giancarlo, I know Toad and I have spent some time trying to figure out how to get this list down to 3 because it was really tough.
I wanted to bring the smoke today because I knew what we were going to be up against in Giancarlo. So my list, I got some deep cuts for my favorite players. I think to lay some ground rules, let's do Florida Marlins only. So someone like Giancarlo Stanton counts because he played for both, but like Jose Fernandez, only Miami Marlins. So he's out of the question. You had to wear the teal to be included in our draft. Fair? Is it
fair?
Let's do it.
Snake draft. Giancarlo, you lead us off. All-time number 1 pick in the Florida Marlin all-time favorite draft.
Your favorite player?
You got. I mean, my favorite player. I would have to go Louis. You know, like that's just a guy that like he was scrappy, man, and a lot of people don't know this. But he played injured. Like he played on one leg for like the second half of his career, and he was still out there stealing bases, man, getting on base. And I think like he was a catalyst of that of a lot of those teams, and a lot of their success depended on him being the catalyst. So I would have to go Louis with the first pick.
That hit streak was all-time core memory for me.
The hit streak, yeah.
The hit streak was incredible.
Unfortunately, my father and I were at the game that it ended. And I remember, I hope my memory serves me right, but it was an extra innings game, and he was on deck. And I think Lenny Harris, you're going to have to fact check me, bro.
Do not go against Legend of Dade. You're going to get fact check hard.
Let me see if I'm
checked
right.
into the boards,
Let me see if I'm right.
I got it.
Damn it. I think let me finish. I think Lenny Harris had a walk-off hit with Luis Castillo on deck. Is that right?
If I believe, I'm 80% sure that it was Tim Raines actually. Right?
I think I'm getting my pinch hitters confused.
I'm not sure. It was a pinch hitter that had a walk-off sac fly, I believe.
Well, we're gonna look it up. When we cut this up, we're gonna put the box score from that game.
I'm almost sure it was a walk off, and Louis was like he was left on deck circle, you know, and then I think he got an ovation after that or something.
I remember that. My shout out to my dad. No matter what, we were at these insane games.
First pick.
My first pick, no brainer here, Mr. Marlin himself, Jeff Conine. I wrote down a lot of notes for this, so bear with me here. Jeff Conine is probably the Marlin who somehow, despite having the nickname Mr. Marlin, is underappreciated and underrated. He was on both World Series teams. He won an All-Star Game MVP in 1995 at the ballpark in Arlington. He was a trade acquisition in 2003 that Giancarlo already brought up that helped carry us to the World Series. He is part of the most significant defensive play in Marlins history with the throw to Pudge at home plate to throw out Jeff Kent, I believe, or JT Snow. JT Snow. I was also at that game. Shout out to my dad again. Nice. And I genuinely feel like this. If the Marlins should absolutely take Giancarlo's advice of honoring our history, start with a Jeff Conine statue. I think without a doubt he is deserving of one. Put it outside Marlins Park the same way Hard Rock Stadium has Dan Marino. We need a Jeff Conine Mr. Marlin statue.
You heard it here first. Boom. Jeff 100%. Conine, Mr. Marlin.
Yes, sir.
My first pick.
Future guest of the podcast.
Future guest of the pod, Mr. Marlin.
I like the way you think, brother.
My first pick is a pick not only for I have a personal relationship with this guy, but he was my favorite Marlin growing up, Alex Fernandez. I feel like that gave the 97 team so much legitimacy, having a frontline ace in Alex Fernandez. Obviously, the Marlins added a bunch of pieces, Kevin Brown, Al Leiter. That rotation was super stout at the top. Alex didn't get to play in that World Series, right? He had, that really tough shoulder injury, and there being a torn rotator cuff kind of derailed his career. I had the privilege of playing with his son at University of Miami. Got to know Alex really well. Obviously, was a childhood hero of mine. The Don, as they call him, Don Fedna. Obviously, the Marlins don't make that World Series run without him. I think up there with Jeff Conine gave the Marlins a ton of legitimacy in that 97 run.
Nice.
And I think I'm at the back of the snake, so I go again. Right?
You're doubling up.
You forgot to mention the 32 on the hat for that.
The 32 on the hat.
That was pretty cool.
I made my mom put the 32 on our hats, and random hats. Anything we wore, we put 32 on because those guys are wearing it. This one's gonna be this is a 97 world. This is the little kid in me because this has carried on throughout my life. And I think he's the coolest Marlin ever, Gary Sheffield.
Ooh,
just because Gary Sheffield, I felt like every time he went in the box, you expected him to hit the ball hard somewhere. He was so cool. He always had a big tobacco win. My dad never told me what it was until I got older and I realized, that's what he was doing all those years. Bro. It was all bubblegum. But Gary Sheffield, by far one of the most iconic and coolest looking Marlins in the batter's box.
No one's batting stance has been mimicked more in baseball history.
Gary Sheffield, my number 2.
I like that pick. Okay.
Toad.
It swings back to me. Man, this is tough. I'm going to go with another. I'm gonna follow the trend of the theme of the episode, Legends of Dade. This is a true legend of Dade, Mikey Lowell.
Wow.
The hot corner, hidden ball trick, clutch hits in 2003. Another guy I would easily put in a Ring of Honor situation, retired number. I have a lot of respect for Mike Lowell, not only like how he made it to the majors and what he dealt with in high school, what he dealt with at the college level, what he had to do to make it in the bigs. But in 2003, when they called him Miguel Cabrera, Jack McKeon had to have what I assume were tough conversations with Lowell, like, hey, you're going to have to take a backseat a little bit because he was fighting an injury. A lot of people I don't think remember this. Mike Lowell was fighting injuries in 2003. Miguel Cabrera stepped in to play a lot for him. And even in the playoffs, Mike Lowell said, fine, whatever it takes to win. And he still came up with super clutch hits in the run. And after that, ended up being a World Series MVP with the Boston Red Sox. So
incredible.
Not only is he a Marlins legend to me, his professional baseball story is one of the best, period.
Bar none.
Yep.
Mic drop.
Yep. And one of the things that makes that 03 team so cool was that, these guys we were mentioning, Lowell, Alex Gonzalez, Luis Castillo, Derek Lee. These are guys that came up, in the organization. They had that core for a good amount of years, and to see it through, and see them be the core of that championship was cool, man.
Giancarlo, you're up.
Two picks now.
You stole my pick, Toad, but I'm gonna go with Miggy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Miggy, man. Just getting called up 03, perfect time, perfect place.
And the walk-off home run when they called him up.
Yeah, man, that's unforgettable. The pie in the face for that walk-off. I'm never gonna forget that. I remember them like kind of just finding a way to, like you said, like they're finding a way to get him on the field. They put him in left field, right field, third base. I think he came up as a shortstop actually, but that's the obvious pick for me, man. GOAT legend, still underrated. I know he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I feel like he's still underrated. Even with that being said,
and every guy we've named so far, Ring of Honor situation,
100%.
And just so I can include the clip as an excuse, the Oppo home run off Roger Clemens in the World Series.
Epic. Yeah,
man.
Giancarlo, who's your last pick?
Man, I'm gonna have to go Ugla, man.
Oh my God!
You just stole Toad's pick.
I'm gonna have to go Ugla, man. Just like the story, the Rule 5 guy.
Yeah.
I remember like 06 was the first team that we really shifted. That's a misconception. A lot of people say, we blew up the team after 03. I mean, yeah, we lost D-Lee and Pudge, but we had most of that core back until 05. And 06 was when we really saw the shift and the new faces. We saw Hanley come in, a bunch of guys that ended up being fan favorites. But Ugla was like the unknown. Nobody knew who he was.
And I love that story. Bombs, bro.
Bombs, man. That guy hit tanks. I like the story with Rich Waltz where he kind of was like, he goes into where nobody knew his name. They used to call him Dan Ugla. Then and
should we do it once? Should we do a tribute to Rich Waltz? And you, Giancarlo, you lead the way, and we'll finish up. Javi, you know where this is going, right?
I would always picture like Rich and Tommy, like behind the camera, like Rich, like giving one of these, and like them being in sync, like.
I'm waiting for you.
And his name is
Dan Ugla.
There you go. That's another one. Like if you know, you know.
Yeah,
things,
a lot of summer nights watching the Marlins, 100%, trying to figure out if they were going to win and seeing Dan Ugla drop bombs.
That's a great pick. I love that you have a soft spot for second baseman. That's so incredibly amazing. And we got some deep cuts in here. And after we finish, I want to go over some stragglers and some what do you call it?
Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions.
Yeah. Okay. My next one, this is going to be very, very random. My third pick, again, an influence from my father because my dad loved him just because he was an amazing character and had two of the best nicknames in all of baseball at the time and maybe to this day. Antonio Alfonseca.
Very good one.
My favorite Marlins pitcher of all time, El Pulpo, famously with the 6 fingers, a.k.a. the Dragon Slayer. Yeah, right here. I think the first elite Marlins closer. And I know there was a run there that the Marlins had great closers: Alfonseca, Armando Benitez, Huguet Urbina,
Todd Jones, Borowski.
Todd Jones.
Joe
Borowski.
Didn't Kevin Brown close for a little bit too?
I don't think so.
Not sure.
Or Al Leiter? I don't know. I'm gonna fact check myself there. But regardless, amazing nickname, hilarious character on the mound. I think he really embraced the Florida Marlins fan base. And again, a guy that when I think of my childhood and going to Marlins games and watching games with my family, immediately one of the first guys I think of.
Yeah.
Great pick.
High energy guy.
Super high energy guy. My last pick, I had a bunch of names and I kind of didn't realize I didn't have his on here, but it's got to be the guy who delivered the 03 World Series, Josh Beckett, just simply for his run in 03. I was a pitcher in my day, and I remember just trying to wrap my head around how clutch he was, how important him coming back on 3 days rest. Jack McKeon completely trusting in him to win that game in Yankee Stadium on 3 days rest, and he goes complete game, like absolutely silences what is a Yankee Stadium, the lore of Yankee Stadium. This guy,
and that Yankee lineup was
stacked. I mean, just an unbelievable run. He has a tremendous career with the Red Sox, the Dodgers, but we had him. It seemed like at his peak, he was one of those fireballers. Him, Burnett, Brad Penny, Carl Pavano, so many likable names on that 03 staff. Just hard to go without Josh Beckett on that list.
I hope when the D Train watches this, he doesn't give Giancarlo a hard time. One of your OG followers, and you didn't include him in your top three, bro.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
I'll give you a moment to maybe explain yourself now, but
you were the next pick, D Train. You were man.
D-Train was right on my list too, bro.
Man, my honorable mentions are insane. Like it's good players. There's great players. Dontre Willis. I had Ugla on my list. Ivan Rodriguez, even though it was 1 year, I'll never forget his press conference, his introductory press conference. I want to help this team. Yeah. And not only did he help this team, he carried them that playoff run offensively.
Yeah.
And then if I got deep enough, I'm a sucker for utility role playing guys. So I wasn't going to pick one of them. I was going to include all four together: Amezaga, Bonifacio, Mike Mordecai, and Andy Fox.
Andy Fox.
Those are deep cuts.
If you morph those four guys together, you got a Hall of Fame baseball player.
Oh man, but this was awesome, Giancarlo. I think this snake draft just goes to show us, man, that we're Marlins fans through and through. We've been watching this team for a long time, and I think very sincerely and genuinely, we really hope that this team gets back to the pinnacle that they once were at, and For fans like us that understand the history of this team, we just can't wait. We're chomping at the bit for it. But as I mentioned earlier, our sincerest gratitude from Todd and I for hopping on with us, for this being your first intro to the world, showing your face. We love your account. We love what you do. We love what you stand for. There's definitely going to be a home for you at the Mafia whenever you want, man. There's a seat for you whenever you want to hop on and talk about the Marlins with us. We appreciate you, and we look forward to meeting you in person, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You let me know whenever you guys want, man. I'm honored to be on. I really love what you guys are doing, man. Keep it going.
All right, Giancarlo. Thanks so much, bro. Appreciate you.